I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, brought to you by the power of coffee. We're filming in the morning. We don't do this very often.
No, we don't.
But today we're going to review for you Deftones, the 7th studio album, No Yokan. Now, Tom, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a Deftones fan are you?
That's got to be a 10.
Yeah.
I love Deftones.
You're kind of a freak.
I know. They're one of my favorite bands, and it's just because every single album they come out with, they impress me. They never fail to impress me. And it's one of those things where it's not just a case of like I'm this like brand loyal fan who's just going to love everything they do no matter what. I always go into it with an open and skeptical mind, and they always impress me, just consistently. And for me, No Yokan was no different. Now, I am shocked a little bit to see that this one's actually garnering a lot more critical praise than a lot of their past releases.
That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, honestly.
No, it doesn't. I mean, I really like this album, but honestly, still, I prefer some of their older works, but I am not at all disappointed. So let's dive in a little bit to how this album plays into their discography.
Sure.
What's different about it? What's the same? Well, coming off of 2010's Diamond Eyes, which both of us absolutely loved, this one, it focuses a little bit more on the atmosphere, a little bit more on the melody.
Right.
It's not just punching you in the face the whole time like Diamond Eyes was, which is kind of a give and take. Now, I really like that approach to their sound. I think it shows some good some good thought on their part, especially when it comes to album flow. They have lots of kind of prog type intros and outros on this album, and the way that they fill these songs up, but at the same time, that isn't necessarily a reflection of the songwriting. Those are two very different aspects. That's kind of, when it comes down to actually the melodies they're using and writing and the intensity they're putting into the songs, that's a whole different story altogether.
Right. Now, I think overall, you would say that this album is kind of, would you say that it's kind of a step down in intensity from Diamond Eyes?
Yes, definitely.
So, one thing that I noticed was that, they're using a very structured format. And Tom, you and I had a discussion last week about this. I wanted to just kind of shed my perspective on it because
for sure.
I'm a guy who absolutely loves crazy song structures, just a lot of variety as far as, just the music always needs to be unpredictable in my mind. If you can predict what's coming more than 80% of the time, I'm usually bored with an album by track like 5 or 6. And I didn't really ever feel totally that way with this album. However, I did feel that there was a lot of predictable moments, so I would say like 60% of the time I knew it was coming. What I like about Deftones is that they are really keen, they know what they do well. They are really good at producing their sound and making it just as loud as possible and really just having a very bold musical attack.
Yeah.
And they do that consistently throughout No Yokan. But one thing that I noticed is that they're sticking intros and outros and pre-choruses in there and these strange kind of bridge parts to kind of give that verse-chorus structure some more diversity.
Yeah.
And it keeps the flow going. However, you still know that there's a verse coming. You still know that there's going to be this chorus coming, and you still, by the time you've heard the first chorus, you still know what that second chorus is going to be like. My point is that as you get into like the latter half of the album, you kind of know what to expect, and therefore there's a couple weaker tracks on the back.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. For me, it's track 8, Gauze, and actually the last track, What Happened to You. They're not terrible songs. I mean, to me, Deftones filler, if you can call it that, is still better than a lot of radio rock.
These guys are just so, they just produce such an even quality.
Exactly, yeah. But for me, I see where you're coming from with that. Now, it doesn't affect me quite as much. But I see where you're coming from, especially from the standpoint of what kind of sound they're going for. Here, they're going for almost more of a prog space rock sound.
Absolutely.
And when you hear that style in a song, it lends itself naturally to have that more expansive song structure.
Right.
Now, Diamond Eyes, they did pretty similar stuff with the song structure, but almost worked a little better because the songs were so much shorter punches.
Yeah.
The intensity was there to fill it up, so you felt like you were getting a full experience from each track, even if it was shorter and a little simpler in nature.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that it was a little bit shorter and it was just so much more aggressive in its sound. I mean, these track lengths are longer, the sound isn't quite as aggressive, they're relying more on the structure to convey the musical ideas. So, I mean, I think it's just more pronounced here, and honestly, it did affect my listening experience. I didn't like Diamond Eyes right away. In fact, I think by the time we even published the review of it, I still was lukewarm.
Yeah, I liked it,
I liked it, but I didn't love love it. And it took, you know, a year later for me to like really just love that album. So, you know, maybe this will be the same way. I'm just not quite there yet, not quite to the same level as you. But, you know, you gotta love everything that Deftones does well, they're doing here. You know, you have Chino's just incredible vocals. You know, it's just intense, shrill. The track Leathers is one of the best, you know, rock tracks I've heard in a year plus, you know. So, I mean, it's just they have all their strength presented here. It's just not in the full capacity, I think, that I'm used to seeing Deftones.
And they are pushing their sound forward in a lot of ways. I mentioned the kind of space prog side of things. These guys have always been a very riff-oriented band.
Yeah,
their guitarist doesn't solo much. There's even not a lot of lead guitar in a lot of their songs, but there is here. There are at least much more of it than you get from their past work. Now, at the same time, while there are these things in the sound moving it forward, I just don't feel like this is their consistently strongest songwriting. And I'd like to cite examples from their earlier albums. I mean, I think that actually when you look at the kind of ratio, if you will, of how much variety there is on this album versus how well it flows, it's probably one of their better albums in that aspect, because they're able to make it flow and fit a lot of different sounds on there. You know, you compare that to like Around the Fur, which is a great album, but it's just very much song by song, you know, not a lot of flow to it, just consistently good songwriting. But here, the thing that I feel like is holding No Yokan a little bit back is just that, to me, while there are some standout tracks, they don't even touch the standout tracks that are on some of their earlier albums. I mean, like on White Pony, there was Digital Bath and Elite and Change. On Self-Titled, for me, those songs were Hexagram, Minerva, Bloody Cape, When Girls Telephone Boys. And on Diamond Eyes, there was, well, the title track. I know a lot of people like that one. I really liked Royal, Command Control, Rocket Skates. To me, those highlights from those particular albums and through the rest of Deftones' discography stand out a little more than the highlights on this one, and also the weaker tracks on this album are a little weaker than the weaker tracks on their other albums. So all in all, it brings the experience down just a notch for me, but like I said in the beginning, I'm still not disappointed. I still really like this album. I think it's a strong effort from just one of the most interesting and engaging rock bands out there right now.
Where are you at on this one?
I am at an 87. So I really dig it.
So in Deftones terms, an 87 for Tom is actually not as high as it sounds.
Right, yeah. But in terms of all the music coming out this year, this probably will be one of my favorites.
Right. Now, I'm a little bit cooler on it for just, you know, the reasons that I pointed out. Plus, I don't attach with Deftones as a band quite as much as you do.
They're just totally my sound.
Yeah, they really are. And typically in like the rock music I like, I'm looking for that. If it's gonna be, you know, I want that super intense moment, and this is just kind of a
Glass
step down.
jaw.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I'm sitting at a 78 right now. Where are you guys at? Let us know at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. What is your favorite Deftones album? Because this is their 7th. These guys are an established band, still kicking ass. I love it. Let us know. I'm really interested to get a conversation going about Deftones. Now, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. That's where we do our communication with you guys, and you guys are what makes VIMTV possible. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.